Well, that's certainly one way to grow an audience. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. As part of my coverage of the 2022 Toronto International Film Festival, today I'm going to be talking about the 2022 dark comedy mystery, Susie Searches, which will be released in theaters on July 28th. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Susie Searches stars Kiersey, Clemons, Alex Wolff, and Jim Gaffigan, and was directed by Sophie Kargman. It tells the story of Susie, the awkward teenage proprietor of a true crime podcast, who takes it upon herself to investigate the disappearance of one of her classmates. There's something so satisfying about being surprised by a film. There are a lot of ways that this can happen, and I think most people's minds instantly jump to a movie that has a surprising or unexpected plot. This is definitely one way for a film to surprise you, and it can be an especially fun and satisfying method for a mystery film. But I think the satisfaction of an under-the-radar sort of unexpected discovery can sometimes be even greater. And Susie Searches was one of those types of movies for me. This film premiered at TIFF last year, and while it wasn't an entirely random watch for me, it wasn't one I necessarily planned either. The little festival blurb piqued my interest, but it wasn't a film I was prioritizing. It just happened that the press screening fit perfectly into my existing schedule, so I figured why not? There was next to no hype for this movie, and the press screening was only about a quarter full, but it ended up being a great experience and a really entertaining movie. I went from almost not even seeing it to it ending up in my top 5 of the festival. So this review is spoiler-free as usual, but this is the kind of film that I think is best watched with as little foreknowledge as possible. So honestly, I'd recommend just going into the movie blind, but again, spoiler-free here so you don't have to worry about anything. That said, I implore you not to watch the trailer for this film. It blatantly and shamelessly states one of the film's biggest revelations. I don't know why they spoiled that aspect in the trailer, but I think it was a big mistake from a marketing perspective. There is more to the story, more twists, more revelations, but that trailer-spoiled element of the story is big, and just something you don't want to know before going in, so avoid the trailer. Like I said before, the unexpected discovery aspect of a film can be super satisfying. But we can't discount the importance of a surprising story, and the story is where Susie Searches truly excels. This is an incredibly twisty mystery thriller. What begins as a sort of Nancy Drew in the social media era type story quickly evolves and shifts as the film progresses. While never getting overly complicated, it's definitely not something I would consider a straightforward story. I think anybody who's seen or read a lot of mystery stories will probably be able to piece things together and figure out certain plot points before they're revealed in the movie, but I think that's part of the fun of a mystery film. And I will say that there are a lot of twists and turns to the story, so I doubt most people will be able to predict everything. It's a story that escalates unexpectedly, perhaps unbelievably, depending on what type of viewer you are, but it definitely keeps things tense and keeps you on your toes, especially when new pieces of information change the context of things you watched and thought you knew before. Although the story is full of unexpected twists and turns, the core themes of the film are decidedly more familiar. That's not necessarily a bad thing, especially depending on your thematic preferences, but it does stand out. Everything else about this movie has this sort of fresh, quirky feel to it, but the themes are kind of just there. It's a film that touches on loneliness and ostracism, and also functions as a bit of a part cautionary tale, part satire of fame and social media presence. When viewed from this thematic standpoint, the film's a bit underwhelming. It doesn't really touch on ideas that haven't been explored in other films, and it doesn't offer any new insight or commentary on these familiar, previously seen themes. So, like I said, the themes are just kind of there. Presented, but never expounded upon in any sort of meaningful way. This could have been a major detriment to the film, But it's clear that this is the type of movie that prioritizes its plot above all else, so those themes and messages aren't really the intended focus anyway. With a film as unexpected and twisty as Susie Searches, you might not be surprised to hear that the tone is just as all over the place. I realize that probably sounds like a negative thing, and I'm sure will be for many people, but this kind of chaotic, wide-reaching tonal whiplash sort of worked for the story. It's a mystery thriller, so it's got the expected drama and tension, but our main character is this very bubbly, naive, optimistic, awkward teenager. So everything winds up filtered through this bright, positive outlook and a very saccharine coating. But with all the twists that happen, things take some dark turns. There's a bit of horror thrown in at times, but the film evolves into a very unexpectedly dark comedy. It's kind of hard to explain, but nearly everything in this film transitions over the course of the runtime. The story, the characters, the tone, the genre, the editing style, it all makes for an ever-changing experience. Perhaps a little too inconsistent in certain regards, but this feature debut is definitely a fun, quirky treat for fans of mysteries. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number 1 is the story. This is an incredibly interesting and twisty mystery. Some of the twists are more obvious than others, but the escalation and domino effect here is certainly less predictable from the get-go. Like several other recent mystery films, this movie provides us with some very pertinent information about 30 or 40 minutes in. And while this information might be disappointing to some people, I really liked it. Because not only did it change the story trajectory, but it also recontextualized what we already saw. Again, this storytelling concept is becoming a bit of a trend lately, but I think it works here, especially if you go into the film blind. Do not watch the trailer before seeing this movie, because it'll take this aspect of the film away from you. The second pro is the tone. If the post-screening mumblings at TIFF were any indication, I think that audiences are gonna be mixed on this particular element. But for me, it definitely ends up on the pro side. I tend to really like dark comedies, especially ones that have a playful edge to them. I also love mystery films and whodunits and thrillers, so Susie Searches is certainly up my alley. These genres and their associated light to dark tones shift over the course of the film. And although there are sort of elements of each of them throughout, there are points in this movie, which match up with certain story revelations, where we see very sudden, dramatic changes in tone. It worked for me, because I think they're tones that are interesting together, but I can definitely see how the tonal whiplash on display here might be a little too inconsistent for some people. On the con side, the biggest issue is the thematic familiarity. So what exactly do I mean by this? Well, my problem here isn't with the themes themselves, so much as their presentation. This story touches a bit on loneliness and the desire to be with the in crowd, as well as things like fame and social media stardom, and a few other ideas I can't talk about without kinda hinting at spoilers. Now, all of these themes are fine. The movie sometimes approaches them in a bit of a satirical way, and doesn't really harp on them, because, to be fair, the thematic content isn't really the focus of the film, but all of these themes just get a very superficial, generic treatment. Most of the takeaway commentary has been said in other recent films, and said much better. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Susie Searches or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Susie Searches 4 out of 5 paws. It's a delightfully twisty and playful dark comedy thriller that's sure to please true crime fans. The film's secrets may or may not surprise you, but watching everything unfold is still an enjoyable time, even if your detecting skills help you guess the ending. I would recommend Susie Searches to fans of playful, twisty mysteries. This is a quirky film with an offbeat tonal mix, but it's a fun tale that has some dark and potentially unexpected turns. People who like mysteries or stories that give you pieces of information that change the context of everything you've watched will delight in the story. And anybody who liked Nancy Drew, The Hardy Boys, The Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, or any sort of young, precocious detective will find some nostalgic intrigue here, without being forced into the same expected endings. If you liked Susie Searches, I would recommend Knives Out. This is another somewhat recent mystery film that balances its thrills and comedy within its interesting whodunit story. Knives Out is more character and dialogue driven than Susie Searches, but both films give the audience an important context-changing piece of information partway through the movie. If you want another dark comedy that explores the more unseemly sides of social media and obsession, you might want to watch Ingrid Goes West. It's not a mystery film, but it's another story featuring characters who insert themselves into the lives of other people. And if you just want another good mystery thriller about a missing person, you should watch Searching. Although it lacks the dark comedy elements of Susie Searches, it does prominently feature social media as a means of telling its tense and very twisty tale. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Susie Searches? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie about the search for a missing person? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainely Movies, the way life should be.